Welcome back to the workshop. In today's video, I'll be turning a natural edge bowl from a beautiful piece of plum wood. Plum is one of my favorite woods to work with. It has a warm color and a very fine grain that really comes alive on the lathe. But this piece also comes with a challenge. There's a large crack running through one side of the blank. Instead of cutting it away, I decided to keep working with the wood as it is and see where the process takes me. As the bowl slowly takes shape, that crack will become an important part of the story. So now, let's begin shaping this bowl. With the blank now mounted on the lathe, the first step is to create a small recess on the inside of the bowl. This recess will allow the chuck jaws to grip the bowl securely from the inside later on. That way, I'll be able to fully finish the outside shape of the bowl first. I first saw this technique used by my fellow woodturner from Croatia, Tomislav Tomažić, and it works really well for pieces like this. Now that the chuck jaws are firmly gripping the recess on the inside, I can flip the bowl blank around. With the piece securely mounted, it's time to begin shaping the outside of the bowl. This is where the overall form starts to emerge and the natural edge slowly begins to take shape. I begin by removing the old tenon. For this step, I'm using a 16mm bowl gouge to carefully cut it away and clean up the base. Once the tenon is gone, I can start shaping the outside of the bowl. At first I work with a pull cut to establish the general curve. Then I switch to a push cut, refining the shape and smoothing the surface as the form of the bowl slowly begins to appear. Here, while using the push cut, you can clearly see the difference between these two techniques on the wood. A pull cut is excellent for quickly shaping the form and removing material, but a push cut gives much more control and leaves a noticeably cleaner surface behind. The fibers are cut more gently, which reduces tear out and creates a smoother finish directly from the tool. This means less sanding later and a much cleaner result on the wood. With the basic outside shape finished, I can now focus on the bottom of the bowl. Since this bowl may need to be refinished someday, I want the tenon to be made in a way that allows the bowl to be safely gripped again, even after it is completely finished. Because of that, this step requires a bit more precision. Before starting, I measured the chuck jaws with the caliper. Those are the same jaws I will later use to hold the bowl while shaping the inside. When measuring the jaws, it's important that they are open by about 3mm. The tenon is then turned to exactly that size. This way, the jaws hold the bowl securely without leaving marks on the wood, and the bowl can be mounted again in the future without damaging the finished surface. While I continue shaping the bottom of the bowl, this will also be the area where our Paipeia wood logo will be added at the end. This stage of the process is always interesting, because there are many different ways woodturners approach the base of a bowl. Some woodturners prefer creating a recess like this, so the chuck jaws can grip the bowl from the inside and expand outward. Others prefer turning a tenon that later becomes a small foot for the bowl. Both methods work well, and each woodturner usually develops their own preference over time. So I'm curious to hear from you. How do you usually finish the bottom of your bowls? Do you prefer a recess for expanding jaws, or do you turn a tenon that becomes the foot of the bowl? Let me know in the comments. I always enjoy hearing how other woodturners approach these details in their own work. At this stage, I'm using a pointed scraper to smooth the walls of the bowl. This helps refine the surface directly on the lathe and reduces the amount of sanding needed later. After that, I return to the bottom of the bowl once more to refine the shape and add a small personal touch. For me, it's important that the bowl looks beautiful from every angle, not just from the side. I remember something a professional wood turner from Slovenia, Stanislav Lemovšek, once told me. He said that wood turners can often be divided into two groups, professionals and amateurs, and one of the easiest ways to see the difference is by looking at the bottom of a bowl, because the bottom shows how much attention and care the maker gives to the entire piece. That's why I always try to make the bowl look complete as a whole, not just as something that looks good sitting on a shelf. With the shaping complete, it's time to move on to sanding. This step may not look as dramatic as cutting with the tools, but it plays a huge role in the final result of the bowl. A well-sanded surface is what really allows the beauty of the wood to appear later when the finish is applied. I begin with 120 grit to remove the remaining tool marks and small imperfections left from shaping. Once the surface is even, I gradually move through the sanding grits, slowly refining the wood step by step. Each grit removes the scratches from the previous one, making the surface smoother and smoother. Here it's important not to rush the process. Good sanding takes patience, but it makes a big difference in the final appearance of the bowl. As the sanding progresses, the fine grain and warm color of the plum wood start to become more visible. By the time I reach 400 grit, the surface is already starting to feel incredibly smooth and the natural character of the wood really begins to show. Before applying the finish, I want to show you something new. We recently introduced a new packaging design for our natural wood wax finish. This finish is made from tung oil and carnauba wax, two ingredients that work beautifully together to protect and enhance the wood. The tung oil penetrates deep into the wood fibers and helps protect the bowl from within. At the same time, the carnauba wax forms a smooth protective layer on the surface and gives the wood a soft, natural sheen. It's a finish I really enjoy using on bowls like this because it highlights the natural color and grain without making the wood look overly glossy. If you'd like to try this finish yourself, it's available on our website and also in our Etsy shop. You can see the link to our website displayed at the top of the video. With the finish applied, we can now move on to shaping the inside of the bowl. To begin shaping the inside of the bowl, I'm using a 16 mm bowl gouge. This gouge is sharpened with a double bevel, which gives me a little more control while cutting deeper into the bowl. It allows the tool to glide more smoothly along the wood and helps me maintain a consistent curve as I gradually remove material from the inside. I slowly work my way down the walls of the bowl, letting the tool follow the shape that was already established on the outside. As I get closer to the bottom, I switch to a 12 mm bottom gouge. This gouge is sharpened at a slightly different angle, which makes it much easier to reach the lower part of the bowl and shape the bottom more precisely. Tools like this are especially helpful when the bowl gets deeper because they allow better access and control in tight areas. Once the basic interior shape is finished, I make a final pass on the bottom using a round scraper. This tool is great for refining the very bottom of the bowl and smoothing out the surface where it can sometimes be difficult to get a perfect cut with a gouge. And now I'm curious to hear from you. How do you usually shape the bottom of your bowls? Do you prefer working with the bowl gouge all the way through, or do you switch to a different tool like a bottom gouge or a scraper for the final passes? Let me know in the comments which tools you like to use when shaping the inside of your bowls. It's always interesting to see how different woodturners approach the same step in their own way. With the inside shape now finished, it's time to move on to sanding the interior of the bowl. The process here is very similar to what I did on the outside. I begin sanding with 120 grit to remove the last small tool marks and even out the surface. From there, I gradually move through the sanding grits, slowly refining the wood step by step. Each grit removes the scratches from the previous one and makes the surface smoother and smoother. Sanding the inside of a bowl can sometimes take a little more patience, especially near the bottom where the curves become tighter. But taking the time here really pays off. As the surface becomes smoother, the beautiful grain and warm color of the plum wood begin to stand out even more. By the time I reach 400 grit, the inside of the bowl already feels incredibly smooth and is ready for the finish in the next step. Now it's time to focus on the crack in the bowl. Instead of trying to hide it, I want this part to become a visible design element. I begin by sanding the area around the crack to prepare the surface. Once the wood is clean and smooth, I start drilling small holes along both sides of the crack. These holes will later allow the leather cord to pass through the wood and hold the crack together. Before continuing with the stitching, I also apply the finish to the inside of the bowl. Just like on the outside, I'm using our natural wood wax made from tung oil and carnauba wax. The finish soaks into the wood, enhances the natural color of the plum wood, and gives the surface a smooth, protective layer. As the oil begins to absorb into the wood, the grain really starts to come alive and the warm tones of the plum wood become much more visible. After the finish is applied, I continue drilling the remaining holes along the crack. Later, I'll thread a 2 mm leather cord through these holes. The idea is to stitch the crack together so that the bowl almost looks like it has been sewn back together. It's a technique that doesn't try to hide the flaw, but instead turns it into something unique and decorative. And I'm curious what you think about this approach. Do you like when cracks in wood are highlighted like this, or would you repair them in a completely different way? Let me know in the comments how you would handle a crack like this in one of your own pieces. Before moving on to the final polishing, there is one more step I always like to add. At this stage, I place our Paipeia wood logo on the bottom of the bowl. For me, this is an important moment in the process, because it marks the piece as a finished work coming out of our workshop. The logo is placed on the base, so it remains subtle, but still becomes a permanent part of the bowl. It's a small detail, but one that gives the piece its identity and connects it to the work Petra and I do in our workshop. With the logo now in place, the bowl is ready for the final polishing step. With the bowl almost finished, the final step is polishing. To bring out a deeper shine, I'm using a buffing wheel mounted on the lathe. Instead of spinning the bowl on the lathe, I hold the bowl carefully in my hands and polish it against the rotating buffing wheel. I apply a small amount of pure carnauba wax to the wheel. Carnauba wax is perfect for this step because it creates a hard protective layer and adds a beautiful natural shine to the wood. As I gently move the bowl across the buffing wheel, the surface begins to change. You can clearly see how the wood becomes smoother and the grain of the plum wood starts to glow even more. This final polishing step really brings the whole piece together and gives the bowl its rich, glossy finish. And with that, the bowl is finished. What started as a simple piece of plum wood with a large crack has now turned into a unique, natural edge bowl with its own character and story. Sometimes the imperfections in wood are exactly what make a piece special, and this bowl is a perfect example of that. If you like how the bowl turned out, it is available on our website and you can find the link displayed at the top of the video. Thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed the process. And as always, I'll see you in the next project.